You lie there in the dark, the room quiet in a way that feels almost unreal, as if the whole world has stepped outside for a moment and left you alone with the soft hum of distant traffic. The air is still, the sheets are warm, nothing is happening, and yet your mind stirs as though something urgent has been forgotten, as though some invisible thread needs to be pulled before everything unravels. You take a breath. It barely reaches your chest. Another, still shallow. There is no crisis, no emergency, not even a clear thought, just that restless, unspoken tension, like a held note that never resolves. The glow of your phone waits beside you, a silent invitation to escape the quiet. You don't touch it, but you feel its pull, the way your fingers itch for distraction, for something to occupy the space that peace leaves behind. It's strange how a room can be this still while your mind paces like a trapped animal. How the night can sit so calmly on your skin while something inside insists that you should be somewhere else, doing something else, fixing something that isn't even broken. You feel the tightness in your jaw, the subtle clench in your stomach, the way your thoughts hover like anxious birds looking for a place to land. You're not in danger, you're not under threat, and yet the body behaves as if the next moment might collapse beneath you. This is the quiet pressure we rarely name, the anticipation of a problem that hasn't appeared, the rehearsal of a conversation that may never happen, the sense that if you let yourself soften, even for a breath, you lose control of something important, though you can't say what it is. Outside, the night moves without your help. Cars drift down distant roads. A breeze shifts through unseen trees. Somewhere, a window rattles softly. Life continues, unbothered, unfolding with its own rhythm. And yet here you are, carrying the weight of an invisible burden, convinced that something must be held together by your constant attention. It's in moments like this that a curious paradox reveals itself. The world is perfectly quiet, but the mind insists something is wrong. Not wrong with the room, not wrong with the night, wrong with you, wrong with the moment, wrong with the silence that refuses to be filled. You feel that familiar ache, the one that shows up when everything outside is peaceful, and the only noise left is the one inside your head. It's the ache of gripping, of bracing for impact, of preparing for some future that hasn't arrived. An ache born not from life, but from the way you hold it. You turn on your side, and the stillness follows you. You look at the ceiling, and the heaviness settles deeper. You close your eyes, hoping to slip into sleep, but the mind whispers again. That persistent little voice asking questions you can't answer. Did you forget something? Should you be doing more? What if you're missing something important? And suddenly the night feels smaller, tighter, as though the room itself is listening to that quiet storm building behind your eyes. But then, somewhere in the middle of all that noise, a softer question begins to form, not loud, not demanding, but gentle. Like someone placing a hand on your shoulder in the dark. What if the heaviness isn't coming from life at all? What if it's coming from the way you hold your life? The way you brace against moments that were never meant to be controlled? As the thought settles, something loosens just a little. Not enough to change everything, but enough to notice the possibility of change, enough to sense there is more to explore beneath this restless surface. More to understand about the tension you've carried for so long. And this is where the deeper dilemma quietly begins. There's a certain heaviness that settles into your days, a weight you carry without noticing how long it's been there. It shows up in small ways first, a tight chest, when you wake, a breath that never seems to reach the bottom of your lungs, the quiet tension humming beneath everything you do. You tell yourself it's normal. Just part of being human, part of keeping things together. But if you look closely, you'll see it isn't life creating this pressure. It's the constant effort to hold life in place. You move through your day with a subtle clench, as though some invisible disaster must be kept at bay. The mind whispers its warnings, its plans, its endless calculations. It tells you that if you stop thinking for even a moment, something important will slip through your fingers. So you stay alert, you brace, you grip, and the world grows smaller around that silent effort. You replay conversations long after they've ended, trying to perfect what can't be changed. You walk away from someone you love and immediately wonder if you said enough or too much, or the wrong thing entirely. You try to read expressions, tone, pauses. Every detail becomes a clue in a puzzle that doesn't actually exist. The moment itself is gone, yet the mind keeps pulling you back, convinced that control is still possible in the past. And then there's the future, that vast, uncertain landscape the ego tries so desperately to manage. You plan every step as though life were a precise equation. You imagine every scenario, not because you enjoy preparing, but because you're terrified of being caught off guard. You try to hold tomorrow in your hands like a fragile ornament, believing it might shatter if you don't handle it perfectly. But the harder you grip the future, the more it cuts into your palms. There's a moment, maybe you felt it, when the fear of losing something becomes more painful than the thing itself. You cling to relationships, to roles, to identities, to routines, not because they're always right or good, but because letting go feels like falling into open air. The ego whispers that control is protection, that certainty equals safety, that vigilance equals strength, and so you obey. You tighten the knot around your own experience and call it responsibility. But underneath all of it, there's a quieter truth. Control is never satisfied. The more you give it, the more it demands. It becomes a fragile web stretched across your days. One small movement, and everything trembles. You become the spider caught in your own threads, spinning faster and faster, trying to secure a stability that keeps slipping away. The body pays the price, a clenched jaw, a restless leg, a breath that stops short, a heart that beats a little too loudly, and the mind it circles endlessly, like a bird trapped in a room, searching for a window that isn't there. This is the emotional cost of gripping. This is the exhaustion no one teaches you how to name. You think you're preventing chaos, but look closely. Isn't the chaos coming from the effort to prevent it? Isn't the turbulence created by the very attempt to calm the waters? It's like trying to steady a pool by keeping your hands submerged in it. Every adjustment sends ripples outward. Every attempt to force stillness only stirs the surface again. And yet you keep trying, not because you're failing, but because the ego is terrified of surrender. It believes that if it loosens its grip, everything will fall apart. It believes your worth depends on how well you can manage the unmanageable part. It believes peace must be earned through effort, vigilance, and control, but that belief is the seed of suffering. Think of the moments you tried to force an outcome, and the conversation you rehearsed 100 times, only for it to unfold in a way you couldn't have predicted. The relationship you tried to hold together, only to feel it slip away despite your best efforts. The dream you chased with relentless planning, only to find that life had other ideas. Control promises safety but delivers tension. It promises clarity but produces noise. It promises stability but creates fragility. Because every time you tighten your grip, you teach yourself a dangerous lesson that life cannot be trusted. And when life cannot be trusted, everything becomes a threat. The mind begins scanning for danger in places where none exists. The unknown becomes something to fear. Quiet becomes suspicious. Peace becomes unsettling. Even joy feels temporary. like something you must protect before it disappears. You start to live not in the world itself, but in the fear of what the world might do. And yet, beneath all of this, something in you is starting to notice the cracks in the pattern. A fin de cognition, a whisper of doubt, the sense that the more you try to control your days, the less control you seem to have, the sense that the harder you push, the more life pushes back. Maybe you've noticed how the moment you stop trying, just for a second, something softens. Maybe you've glimpsed those rare moments when peace arrives without effort, when clarity comes without thinking, when life moves smoothly the moment you stop interfering. These moments don't last long. They flicker, they vanish, but they leave behind a question, a clear one, but impossible to ignore. If forcing life creates suffering, if gripping makes everything harder, if control breeds the very chaos it fears, then what happens if you loosen your hold? What happens if you stop trying to manage the unmanageable? What happens if, instead of gripping, you allow somewhere inside, beneath the tension and the noise, you already sense it. There must be a gentler way. It often happens in the smallest, most unremarkable moments. You're not trying to change anything. You're not analyzing, planning, or rehearsing. You're simply standing by a window in the early morning, watching the rain slide down the glass. Or maybe you're sitting outside for a moment because the air felt heavy indoors, and the breeze on your face surprises you. Of soft, cool, effortless, and without noticing it right away, something inside you loosens, a breath drops deeper, a thought dissolves before it finishes forming. The tension you've carried for days, maybe weeks, unravels by a single thread. It's subtle, almost accidental, but that's the point. Calm doesn't arrive because you tightened your grip on it. It arrives because for a moment you let go without meaning to. You forgot to hold the world upright. You forgot to monitor yourself. You forgot to manage every possibility. And in that forgetting, peace slipped through the cracks like light entering a dark room. You stand there, watching the rain, and you realize the world moves on its own. The drops fall without your permission. The clouds shift without your instructions. The trees sway without asking what they should do next. Everything flows, quietly, naturally, beautifully, exactly, because nothing is controlling it. And then something even more curious appears. A thought, but not the usual kind. Something softer. What if the calm I've been chasing was always here? What if it's my effort that keeps it out? You begin to see the shape of a truth that's been hiding in plain sight the more you try to control life. The more life pushes back, the more you try to secure yourself, the more insecure you feel, the more you try to manage the unknown, the more overwhelming it becomes. Control creates the very turbulence it tries to prevent. It's like trying to smooth the surface of a river with your hands. The moment your fingers touch the water, you disturb it. But if you stop interfering, if you simply let the river be, it reflects the sky with perfect clarity. And suddenly the metaphor expands. You see yourself in that river, how your constant trying stirs up the very storm you want to escape. Imagine for a moment you are a leaf drifting on the surface of that river. You don't propel yourself. You don't steer. You don't tense up, afraid of where the water will take you. You simply float. You move because the river moves. You turn because the current turns. There is no separation between you and the flow carrying you forward. Now imagine how different life would feel if you lived like that. Light, receptive, open, trusting the movement beneath you instead of fighting it. The shift begins here. You start to notice that the peace you felt by accident wasn't random at all. It was what remained when control paused. When the grip loosened, when the mind stopped insisting it needed to be in charge, that loosening wasn't weakness. It wasn't irresponsibility. It was clarity. It was the moment you stopped standing in your own way. Look closely at that grip. It isn't strength. It's fear disguised as strength. It's the ego's attempt to hold back an ocean with a pair of trembling hands. But the ocean doesn't need holding back. And you, this small wave, trying to fight the tide, were never separate from it. You are not the one controlling the movement. You are the movement. The breath moves on its own. The heartbeat pulses without your instructions. Thoughts rise and fall like mist. Life breathes through you the way wind moves through a field. Nothing in nature strains to be itself. The tree doesn't try to grow. The bird doesn't try to fly. The sun doesn't try to shine. And yet you, a living expression of the same universe, keep trying so hard to manage every moment of your existence, as if life wouldn't unfold without your supervision. Isn't it strange how you trust gravity to hold you, the lungs to breathe you, the earth to spin beneath you? Yet you don't trust life to carry you from one moment to the next. You've been living as though you were separate from the very thing sustaining you, as though you were the thinker of thoughts rather than the space in which thoughts appear, as though you were the controller of life instead of life expressing itself through a temporary shape called you. When this recognition dawns, something softens deep inside, not because you forced it to soften, but because control no longer makes sense. You can feel the impossibility of it, the absurdity, the exhaustion of gripping a world that moves regardless of how tightly you hold on. You loosen just a little, and in that loosening, a quiet clarity appears, like opening a window in a stuffy room and feeling fresh air drift in, uninvited but deeply welcome, like unclenching a fist you didn't realize you'd been holding for years, like discovering that the door you've been pushing against was meant to be pulled. Awareness, not effort, dissolves the grip. Seeing, not striving, opens the way. You begin to understand that peace is not something you create. It's something you uncover when control falls away. It's the natural state beneath the noise, the stillness beneath the storm. And as this understanding spreads through you, slowly, gently, your relationship with life starts to change. You don't feel the need to predict every outcome. You don't feel the urge to manage every emotion. You don't feel the constant pressure to hold everything together. The river is carrying you, whether you fight it or not. And it becomes clear, in a warm and humbling way, that life has always known where to go. It never needed your grip. It needed your trust. And this realization, this widening of the heart, prepares you for what comes next. The quiet liberation waiting on the other side of letting go. Morning arrives gently. The way a whisper reaches a quiet room, soft light stretches across the floor, touching the edges of the furniture, warming the cool air with its calm insistence. You breathe in without realizing it. And this time the breath sinks deeper, moving past the tight places that once held everything in. Nothing has changed in the world outside. Yet something inside you feels different. Looser, quieter, more spacious. The mind isn't rushing to meet the day. It's simply here, resting in the openness you've begun to allow. You notice how still the room is. Not the heavy stillness that used to feel like pressure, but a living stillness, like the air after a storm has passed. Thoughts rise, but they no longer arrive with urgency. They drift in like small clouds across a wide sky and drift out again without needing your attention. The body softens, the jaw unclenches, the heart beats in a steady rhythm that feels older than you, wiser than you, for the first time in a long while. Nothing needs managing. It becomes clear now, in this gentle quiet, that peace was never something you had to chase. It was here all along. waiting beneath the layers of gripping and fear and the endless rehearsing of life. You can feel it, an undercurrent of calm that belongs to you, not because you earned it, but because it has always been part of what you are. Like a river easing into wider water, you sense yourself expanding into a larger truth. The world moves, and you move with it. You begin to see life differently, not as a sequence of moments you must control, but as a dance you were already participating in, without knowing the steps. You see how natural it is to sway with what comes, to turn when life turns, to pause when life pauses. There's no need to direct the music. There's no need to anticipate the rhythm. You are not an outsider watching the dance. You are the movement itself, unfolding effortlessly from one breath to the next. Sunlight shifts across the wall, and you feel it land on your skin, warm and steady. The simplicity of it touches you, the way light moves through leaves, the way shadows soften, the way the world carries on without forcing anything. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that you belong here, not as someone trying to prove themselves to life, but as life expressing itself through a temporary form. You were never separate from the flow. You were the flow resisting itself. And now that resistance loosens, the old narrative, the one that insisted something was missing, something was broken, something needed fixing, begins to crumble. You see how deeply you believed that control was protection, when all it ever did was narrow your view. You see that nothing was missing, nothing was broken. The storm was never the world outside. It was the grip you kept around your own experience. And as that grip opens, the world opens with it. So you step into this moment more fully, not with effort, but with ease. You feel the air moving in and out of your lungs. You feel the quiet hum of existence beneath your skin. You feel the soft truth that life has never asked you to hold it together. It only ever asked you to be here, to participate, to let it move through you. And now, standing in this gentle light, you can let life be, you can let yourself be, and in that allowing, you finally find the peace that was waiting for you all along. And maybe, as you move through the rest of your day, you'll notice how everything seems a little softer when you're no longer trying to control it. The way conversations unfold more naturally, the way you hear the wind in the trees, the way small frustrations pass through you without leaving a mark. You begin to understand that surrender isn't the end of your involvement. It's the beginning of your participation, a quiet partnership with life, rather than a struggle against it. And from here, and the present moment no longer feels like something to survive. It feels like home. Totalwerts 90 plus 87 plus 84 plus 81 plus 87 plus 99 plus 92 plus 100 is gelijk aan 700.